Have you ever worked so hard, achieved so much, and still felt like you were quietly failing? Not because of what the world said, but because of a voice inside that whispered, "You're not enough. Not yet." If that sounds familiar, this video is for you. Because what if the true weight holding you back is not in your present, but in the silent shadow of your past? Today, we're going to explore a part of your inner life that few dare to face. The voice of the Father, not the man, but the force. Not the memory, but the blueprint. And how it still shapes your confidence, your ambition, even your worth. You'll discover how this invisible presence became law in your mind, and how to finally rewrite it. Let me tell you a story. There was once a man who had everything in order: the job, the family, the house. But every night, he'd lie awake, replaying every mistake, every missed word, every moment he felt small. Not because anyone was criticizing him, but because deep down, he was still waiting for his Father's approval. Approval that never came. He didn't realize he wasn't chasing success. He was chasing permission. If you've ever felt that, you are not alone. And if you've ever wondered, why does that old voice still have so much power over me? This journey is your mirror and your map. If you've ever heard that inner critic say, "Stay small," drop a 1 in the comments. Like, share, and subscribe, because this conversation is just beginning. There's a voice inside you. You didn't invite it. You didn't choose it. And yet, it speaks the loudest when you're about to rise. It whispers when you reach for something new. It questions your instincts. It reminds you to stay small, to stay safe, to not be too much. You might call it self-doubt, anxiety, or perfectionism, but at its core, it's often the echo of something older. A pattern, a presence, a figure you never examined. That voice, it sounds like logic. It masks itself as caution. But beneath it is a question that's haunted many of us since childhood. Am I allowed to be who I truly am? For some, it was a real father's words. For others, it was his silence. And for many, it was his absence, literal or emotional. But the impact was the same. We absorbed a script, a way of measuring ourselves not by truth, but by compliance. You worked hard, you proved yourself, but somewhere deep down, it still feels like you're waiting to be seen, waiting to be approved, waiting to feel enough. And here's the paradox. You're not a child anymore. No one is holding you back now, except that internal voice you never chose, but still obey. Maybe you've climbed mountains, only to find emptiness at the top. Maybe you've achieved everything and still feel like a fraud. Maybe you pause every time you want to speak up, because that voice reminds you, who do you think you are? This isn't just psychology. This is identity. Because when you don't own your inner voice, you live by someone else's. And for many, that voice is the leftover architecture of the father. Not the man himself, but the rules, judgments, and emotional patterns we inherited from him, even if we never fully understood them. The truth: you're not broken, you're not lost. You're simply living by an inner law that was never written by you. But here's the shift. That voice can be rewritten, not silenced, not erased, but transformed into a guide, into wisdom, into the voice you always needed. So pause for a moment. Ask yourself, who's been speaking inside your mind when you hesitate, when you shrink, when you overwork to be seen? And more importantly, are you ready to meet that voice? Not to fight it, but to finally understand it. If you've ever heard that voice say, "You're not enough," drop a 1 in the comments. You're not alone, and this journey is just beginning. Let's pause and ask a bold question. What if your struggles with confidence, authority, or even self-worth have less to do with your actual father and more to do with what he came to represent inside you? Because the father, in Jungian psychology, is not just a man. He is an archetype, a force, a framework. He is the inner lawgiver, the compass that shapes your sense of right and wrong, the hand that pushes you beyond comfort, or the voice that warns you never to try. He can show up in your decisions, in how you handle success, in how you tolerate failure, in how you lead or hesitate to lead. To understand the father wound, we must separate the man from the symbol. The father as a man may have been kind, cruel, distant, or absent. But the father as a symbol is something far deeper. He's the foundation of how we orient ourselves in the world. When he is present, clear, and affirming, he becomes a structure of strength within. When he is absent, inconsistent, or punishing, he becomes a shadow force, shaping you by what he never gave. Let me explain with a story. Imagine a woman named Sarah. Her father was a quiet man, hard-working, but emotionally unavailable. He never raised his voice, never hit her, but he also never praised her, never asked how she felt, never showed warmth. Now, as an adult, Sarah finds herself unsure. She questions every decision. She achieves, but never celebrates. She's deeply afraid of disappointing others, even though no one is demanding anything from her. What's happening? Sarah isn't responding to the world. She's responding to the inner father, the one who never said, "You're enough," the one who taught her, through silence, that love must be earned. Now take another example. Daniel. His father was present, but overbearing. Every mistake was punished, every opinion challenged. Daniel learned to survive by being perfect or invisible. Now he's a successful executive, but inside, he's anxious. He drives himself to exhaustion, not because he wants more, but because he fears being not enough. Again, this is not just about childhood. It's about the symbolic power of the father archetype. When distorted, this force can cripple our ambition or drive us into burnout. It can suppress our voice or make us overcompensate just to feel seen. And here's the twist. You can have a great dad and still carry a distorted father archetype. Because this isn't about blame, it's about inner architecture. The father is the part of you that sets the rules. If those rules are built on fear, silence, or criticism, you will live by them even if the man who inspired them is long gone. So, father or force, you must ask yourself, what does the word father feel like in my body? Safe? Encouraging? Harsh? Distant? Does it inspire you to rise or make you shrink? Because whatever that answer is, it's not just memory, it's your map. And until you update it, you will keep navigating your life using someone else's compass. What did the father symbol teach you about who you are allowed to be? Drop your answer, or just a word that captures that feeling, in the comments. You're not rewriting your past. You're reclaiming your power. Sometimes it's not what was said, it's what was never said. It's not the punishment that leaves the deepest mark, but the silence, the absence. There are many kinds of fathers, but perhaps the most haunting kind is the one who wasn't truly there. Not just the father who left, but the father who stayed, and still felt like a stranger. He may have provided, but did he witness you? He may have protected, but did he see who you were becoming? Many adults walk through life carrying a weight they can't name, a chronic uncertainty, a hesitation to trust themselves, a fear of being too much or not enough. They think it's a personality flaw. It's not. Often, it's the echo of a father who never mirrored back their worth. You see, children learn who they are through reflection. When a child says, "Look at me," they're not just seeking attention, they're asking, "Am I real? Do I matter?" When no one looks, the question remains unanswered, and the child begins to guess. Maybe I'm not important. Maybe I have to try harder. Maybe who I am isn't enough. That guess becomes a law. A silent, rigid law that governs adulthood in secret. Let's meet Jordan. He's a brilliant artist, But he never shows his work. Every time he finishes something, he hides it. He tells himself it's not ready yet. But the truth is, he's afraid to be seen. Because growing up, his father never showed interest, never asked to see what he made, never said, "I'm proud." Now, decades later, Jordan still lives by that invisible rule. Don't show who you are, no one will care. It's not rational, but it's powerful. That's what absence does. It writes scripts we don't remember agreeing to. For some, the law is, don't speak. For others, don't shine too bright. Or, only succeed if it looks like struggle. These aren't ideas. They're survival strategies. Once upon a time, they protected you. But now, they imprison you. And here's the heartbreaking part. You may be keeping those laws alive, long after the authority behind them disappeared. Not because they're true, but because they're familiar. So pause. Ask yourself, what laws are you living by, that were born from someone else's absence? Who told you, directly or indirectly, that you must earn love? And what would happen if you broke that law? Would your world collapse, or would it finally open? If you've ever felt unseen, even by someone who was right there, leave a 1 in the comments, because naming it is the first step to rewriting it. Not all fathers yell, not all fathers punish. Some do something far more confusing. They disappear, even when they're right there. And in their place, a shadow begins to grow. Carl Jung taught that every archetype has 2 faces, light and dark, the sacred and the distorted. The father, too, has a shadow. He's not always abusive. Sometimes he's absent. Sometimes he's unpredictable. Sometimes he's quiet. So quiet, the silence becomes the story. The shadow father isn't just a difficult memory. He is a psychic imprint, a force that whispers rules into your life without ever announcing himself. He's the part of you that winces before you speak, the hesitation before joy, the inner flinch when you feel seen. He says, don't ask for too much. Don't trust anyone. Stay small. Stay safe. Stay invisible. Let's imagine Lila. Lila is confident on the outside. She's successful, articulate, and independent. But in relationships, something shifts. She hesitates to be vulnerable. She's always preparing for someone to leave or control. Why? Because her father was emotionally distant, present in body, absent in soul. She never knew if he'd praise or criticize. So she built armor. Now, decades later, her shadow father still whispers, don't get too close. Love isn't safe. Or take Marcus. He's a high achiever. But no matter how much he does, it's never enough. He works late. He sets impossible goals. He collapses into burnout, then does it all again. Why? Because his shadow father, a perfectionist, demanding, never satisfied, still lives inside him. Marcus doesn't chase success. He flees from failure, from the shame he inherited, not the truth he owns. This is the silent architecture of the shadow father. He doesn't scream, he whispers, and that whisper becomes law. A law you obey without question, a script you follow without realizing you're on a stage. Until one day, something breaks. A relationship ends. A dream dies. A fatigue sets in so deep, even your victories feel hollow. That's when you know you've been ruled by a ghost. But here's the hope. The shadow father is not your enemy. He is your invitation. He is the map to your healing. The signal that something in you is ready to change. So what do? You bring him into the light, not to blame, but to understand. Because once you see the shadow, it stops controlling you. Once you name the rule, you can rewrite it. You stop asking, what did he want from me? And start asking, what do I need from myself now? Has the shadow father shaped any rule you live by? Drop it in the comments, even just a phrase, because the moment you speak it, you begin to free yourself from it. Imagine this. Every time you make a choice, a silent courtroom lights up inside your mind. You stand on trial. But no one else is there. Just you. And a voice that never seems satisfied. This is the inner tribunal. It doesn't yell. It questions. Are you sure that's good enough? Was that really the right decision? Should you have done more? You weren't born with this voice. It was inherited, absorbed, constructed, brick by brick, from glances, silences, sighs, and rules unspoken. And often, that voice echoes the shadow of your father, not necessarily his words, but his tone, his expectations, his absence. The inner tribunal isn't just critical, it's relentless. It rewards performance and punishes rest. It praises perfection and doubts joy. You achieve something, and it says, well, you could have done better. You take a break, and it says, don't get lazy. You speak your truth, and it says, who do you think you are? Sound familiar? Many live under this psychic regime. They become overachievers, not because they're ambitious, but because they fear being unseen. They overthink, not because they lack clarity, but because they're afraid of being wrong. They stay silent, not because they have nothing to say, but because somewhere deep inside they learned that being visible was dangerous. And here's the tragedy. This inner tribunal isn't real. It's not law. It's memory. It's the residue of a system you once needed to survive. But now, it's suffocating you. Let's meet Eric. He just got promoted. Everyone's celebrating. But instead of joy, he feels a strange weight, guilt, doubt, panic. Why? Because his inner tribunal just convened, and the verdict was, you don't deserve this. They'll find out. Be careful. Eric's father never praised him, only criticized, harshly, even when he succeeded. So now, success feels dangerous. Not because it is, but because it threatens a rule Eric doesn't know he's still living by. That's how deep the inner tribunal goes. It's not just in your mind, it's in your nervous system, your gut, your breath. But here's the good news. You are not your courtroom. You are not the voice that judges. You are the one hearing it. Which means, you can question the judge. You can look at the verdict and say, this is not my truth. This is my training. You can dismiss the case.
So today, I invite you to notice, what tone do you use when you speak to yourself? Is it yours or inherited? And if it's not yours, are you ready to write a new voice? Drop a 1 if you've ever been put on trial by your own mind. You're not alone, and this inner courtroom can be dissolved.
There's a moment, quiet and haunting, when you realize you've become the very voice you feared, the rules you once resented. Now you enforce them on yourself. The silence you begged to be broken. Now you offer it to others. The pressure that once crushed your joy, now you pass it down to your team, your partner, your children, or worst of all, to your own heart. This is the most subtle effect of the father wound. You don't just carry it, you become it. Let's take a closer look. Meet James. Growing up, his father was harsh. Nothing James did was enough. Why a B, not an A? Don't cry. Try harder. James promised himself, I'll never be like him. But now, James has a son. And when his son messes up, something takes over. His tone sharpens. His patience disappears. His words sting. And in those moments, James hears his father's voice, coming out of his own mouth. It wasn't a choice. It was an unconscious inheritance. Now meet Maya. Her father was absent, not in miles, but in attention. He was always working, always distracted, never asked, how are you feeling? Maya grows up to be strong, capable, independent. But deep down, she fears intimacy. She never lets anyone too close. She downplays her needs. She teaches herself, don't expect too much from anyone. And without knowing it, Maya is parenting her own inner child, the same way her father parented her, not with cruelty, but with emotional distance. This is how the cycle continues, not out of malice, but out of unawareness. You repeat the pattern not because you want to, but because you haven't seen it clearly. But now you are seeing. You are waking up. And that changes everything. Because the moment you realize you've become him, you gain the power to become someone else. Not a reaction, but a conscious choice. You can become the father you always needed. The one who encourages without pushing, who sets boundaries without shame, who sees you, not just for what you do, but for who you are. It starts with noticing the tone you use on yourself. Would you speak that way to someone you love? If not, why are you using it on your own soul? And it continues with compassion, not just for the child you were, but for the adult you've become. You were doing the best you could with the map you were given. Now, you get to rewrite it. If you've ever caught yourself becoming the voice you once feared, drop a 1 in the comments. Because awareness isn't the end, it's the beginning of transformation. Not all revolutions are loud. Some happen in silence. In the quiet moment you say, no more. No more shrinking to be loved. No more chasing approval that never comes. No more obeying rules you never agreed to. This is the sacred revolt. It's not rebellion for rebellion's sake. It's not rage toward the past. It's the decision to live from truth, not trauma. And it begins with a confrontation. Not with your actual father, but with the father inside you, the one who criticizes your joy, who doubts your worth, who delays your dreams in the name of safety. That inner father, formed in childhood, rooted in silence and sustained by habit, has become your compass. But a compass based on fear doesn't point to freedom. Carl Jung taught that healing the father wound requires symbolic action. So how do you do it? You meet the father within, on your terms. You create space to listen and to speak back. You can do this through journaling, through active imagination, through ritual, through dream work. Here's one powerful practice. Close your eyes. Picture your father, not the man, but the force. See him standing before you. Ask, what rules did you give me that no longer serve me? What do I still carry that belongs to you, not me? What do I need to say to be free? Then, say it. In your mind. In your journal. Out loud. Say the words your younger self never could. You don't need an apology to heal. You need a voice, your own. Some write letters, some burn old beliefs, some speak new vows. I no longer live to prove my worth. I lead myself now. I am not a reflection of your fears. These symbolic acts matter. Why? Because the unconscious doesn't respond to logic. It responds to meaning. You are not erasing the father. You are transforming the father image within, from critic to counselor, from judge to guide, from ghost to ally. This is the sacred revolt, not an attack on your past, but an uprising for your future. Not blame, but liberation. You're not doing this to punish anyone. You're doing this to remember who you were before shame took the lead. Have you ever performed a symbolic act to reclaim your voice? If not, what would yours look like? Drop it in the comments, because this is not just therapy, this is ceremony. Healing isn't about erasing the past. It's about rewriting the voice it left behind. You can't change what was said to you, or what was never said, but you can decide what gets repeated inside you, today and every day after. Because that inner voice, it's not set in stone, it's a script, and every script can be revised. Most people think self-talk is just habit, but in truth, it's identity. It reveals who you believe you are, and who you think you're allowed to be. When the father voice remains unexamined, it becomes law. But when it's met with awareness, it becomes clay, moldable, transformable, human. So what does rewriting the voice look like? It looks like waking up, feeling anxiety rise. And instead of pushing it down, you say, "It's okay, you're safe now, I'm here." It looks like standing in front of a decision. And instead of doubting yourself, you hear, "I trust you, even if you make a mistake." It looks like success arriving. And instead of fear or guilt, you feel, I deserve this, I've worked for this, and I can enjoy it. This new voice isn't fake. It's not a mantra you tape to a mirror. It's a relationship between the part of you that was once wounded and the part of you that's ready to lead. You become the father you needed. Not a perfect one, a present one. You encourage without pushing. You correct without condemning. You guide without control. And something profound happens. You stop running. You stop chasing approval. You stop proving your right to exist. You start showing up. You speak not to impress, but to express. You act not from fear, but from clarity. You live not to be chosen, but because you've already chosen yourself. Let me say that again. You've already chosen yourself. This is the voice we need more of in the world. Not louder, but truer. A voice that says, you belong. You're allowed to take up space. You don't need to earn your worth. It's yours. So today, rewrite one sentence inside you. Just one. Take the harshest thing you say to yourself and turn it into something a wise, loving guide would say. Repeat it. Believe it. Live by it. Drop that one rewritten sentence in the comments. Let it be your first revision, your first declaration. The story may have started with someone else's voice, but the pen is now in your hands. There's a myth we've all been sold, that adulthood begins when you turn 18, when you move out, when you pay your own bills, when you make your own rules. But real adulthood? It starts the moment you no longer need someone else's permission to be fully yourself. That moment might not look dramatic. It could be as quiet as saying no without explaining why. As simple as resting without guilt. As sacred as trusting your intuition, even when no one else understands it. True adulthood is not measured by how much you achieve, but by how free you are inside your own skin. And freedom doesn't begin in the outer world. It begins with the father complex being dismantled from within. Carl Jung called this the process of individuation, the birth of the sovereign self. Not the child seeking approval, not the rebel proving a point, but the adult, clear, grounded, whole. That kind of maturity doesn't come with age. It comes with reckoning, with naming what you were taught to believe and asking if it's still true, with grieving the father you didn't have and choosing to become the one you need. Let's meet Leah. She always lived cautiously, tried not to upset anyone, made choices based on safety, not desire. Why? Because her inner voice said, don't stand out, it's not safe. But then one day, Leah stopped. She didn't explode. She didn't burn bridges. She simply paused and asked herself, whose voice is this, and do I still want to live by it? That was the beginning of her adulthood. Not when she got her degree, not when she had kids, not when she made 6 figures, but when she stopped living by a script she didn't write. This is the invitation for you too. To no longer manage your life from behind a veil of inherited expectations. To stop being a supporting character in someone else's legacy. To step into authorship of your own. Because once you become the adult, the child in you needed, you stop looking outside for what can only be reclaimed inside. You stop performing. You start being. And in that space, you don't have to reject your past. You just don't have to repeat it. When did you first feel like you were truly living for yourself? Or are you still waiting for that moment? Drop a word, a sentence, anything. Because your story might unlock someone else's freedom. There comes a turning point. When you realize the permission you've been waiting for, to rest, to speak, to lead, to matter, isn't going to come from anyone else. Because now, you are the father. Not in the literal sense, but in the symbolic, sacred sense. You are the one who must protect your own boundaries. You are the one who must affirm your own worth. You are the one who must say, I see you. I believe in you. You're enough. This is the final shift, from child to sovereign, from seeker to source. You become the one who stands behind yourself, the one who shows up. Not just when it's convenient, but when it's hardest. You are the father now. You are the one who steadies the storm inside, who reminds the frightened child within, you're not alone anymore. You are the one who says, you don't have to earn love. You are love. You don't have to prove anything. You are worthy. You don't have to stay small. You are safe to expand. And you don't have to be perfect. You just have to be present. The healed father within doesn't push. He listens. He challenges with compassion. He offers structure without shame. He leads with clarity, not control. And from this place, something new is born. You start to create not from fear, but from flow. You lead not to dominate, but to serve. You love not to be chosen, but to reflect your truth. This is the integration of the archetype, the circle completed, the shadow met and transformed. Now, you walk with both wisdom and softness. Now, you live not in reaction, but in creation. You carry a new voice, not inherited, but earned, not demanded, but chosen. A voice that says, this is my life, and I lead it from within. If this message stirred something in you, leave a 1 in the comments, not just for me, but as a signal to someone else who's walking the same path. Let's remind each other, real strength is quiet. True leadership begins inside, and the most powerful revolution is to become the guide you once searched for. You are the father now. Walk with peace, walk with purpose, walk as your whole self.